Greetings, 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 dear beloved family. Welcome once again. Assalamu alaikum to all of my Muslim brothers and sisters. Shalom, shalom to all of my Hebrew family. Jah Rastafari to all of my Rastafarian brethren and sistren. I mean, we could just go with all the greetings, but just to say, family, welcome once again to Imagination. And I feel, as always, very, very blessed and very, very privileged to have an opportunity to come to you wherever you may be viewing this or listening to it, wherever you might be. You may not be able to catch us live this evening, but at some point in the future, you'll be able to visit our site at LSG London Study Group on YouTube and view it, at a later date. But welcome, family. I'm very, very excited. I'm very happy to be with you once again this evening. Of course, the time is moving so rapidly. It's unbelievable that we're nearly at the end of January 2022 already. And from last year, I've been telling you that, I really wanted to do this particular subject matter. So as you can see, this is episode 16. Again, it's unbelievable that we've gone 16 episodes already of the Imagination Show. And this evening, our title is How to Eat to Live. Okay, this is a big one, brothers and sisters. I can tell you right from the outset, there's no way that we're going to be able to cover this in one session. So chances are we may go for 2 or maybe even 3 weeks in truth on this particular subject matter, because it's not something that I really want to rush through. It's something that is absolutely critically important to us as a people, in truth to the members of the human family, whoever wants to take notice, whoever cares about their health, whoever wants to have longevity on this planet. We just really need to understand this philosophy, this concept, this idea, this way of life, how to eat to live. It's very, very critically important, dear family. And this evening, we're going to go to the master teacher, the most honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, to really kick us off. I'm gonna play about 5 minutes of the minister who's going to be dealing with the subject matter, just to really set the foundation for us to understand the gravity, the importance of what's involved here. Because on the one hand, we can think, oh, this is just about, eating a particular type of food or whatever, a particular type of nutrition, and then we're gonna be good. But it's so much more than that, dear family. It's very unfortunate that there's an aspect of the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad that we're given in the Nation of Islam. And what that teaching says is that we have been deprived, or we've been denied 3 sciences that once upon a time we were masters of. And those 3 sciences, dear family, the first one is the science of, it's not necessarily in this order, but the first one that I want to mention is the science of finance, or the science of money, the science of really knowing how to, accumulate and use wealth in its proper context. The second science is the science of warfare, the science of warfare, and knowing how to defend what you have, knowing how to protect, knowing how to preserve that which is yours. And the third one is the science of mating, the science of how to choose your partner for life, the science of how to build a family, build a community. And all of this, dear family, is connected to this idea of longevity, this idea of living properly, this idea of having the right fuel for one's life. And again, we're talking about physical fuel, which is our food, but equally we're talking about spiritual fuel, which is the word, which is the concepts and the ideas that we live by. You understand what I'm saying? The philosophy that we govern our lives by. And so this subject is, on the surface, it may sound very, very simple. And to some degree, it is. You know, it's not, we don't have to really get too complicated. But in reality, the reason why I mentioned those three sciences is because that science of warfare is something that we must understand. That not everyone on this planet is our friend, okay? And unfortunately, you have those who have designed a world that is not conducive to life. It's not conducive to longevity. It's not conducive to people living at their optimum health level, okay? So there are forces ranged against the people being able to live how God designed us to live in the first place. Hence why it's critically important that we have to fight back, that we have to understand that this is not a lightweight thing, but that there are things that we have to overcome in order to be able to employ how to eat, to live. It's not just a situation where, you know, you say it and it's done. It's something that we need to practice. It's something that we would have to work at, something that we have to study. It's something that we have to come to a comprehensive knowledge about in order to make it effective within our lives. So that's my kind of opening gambit. And really, without further ado, I really want us to hear from the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who is going to, as I said, kick us off this evening on this subject matter, how to eat to live. So without further ado, the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan, dear family.
What type of cooking oils are used in the inner cities in the fast food industry to fry the foods? Remember, all of this comes from a policy of government written in the National Security Study Memorandum of Henry Kissinger and the Global 2000 Depopulation Policy under President Jimmy Carter, to produce in water and food and other methodologies that which would depopulate from 2 to 3 billion people from our planet. Dr. Will Allen of Growing Power makes this comment, quote, "We have seen the results of our reliance on the industrialized, commoditized food system we have built since the middle of the last century. A rapidly rising rate of obesity in generation after generation, leading to alarming rates of diabetes and heart disease, so that for the first time in America, despite all our advances in medicine, our life expectancy is falling," Dr. Allen said. He continues, "Finally, we are learning that treating illness is much less effective than preventing illness by promoting health, and that good food is the best and most fundamental preventive medicine of all. Polls now show that 86% of Americans want good food, real food, fresh, locally grown food that is safe and free of chemicals and genetic modifications. But there is simply not enough good food being grown for all those who want and need it. I am simply trying to help change that," says Will Allen. Well, we are with Will Allen in trying to do just that. I would like to add that when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was among us, none of us had health insurance. Our health insurance was in this book, how to eat to live. And when we followed it strictly, actually among the Muslims, some Muslims never thought that we died because we had so few funerals in the nation of Islam. One man could travel the entire nation from coast to coast, from the Canadian border to the Gulf, to bury our dead. But that's not so today. I think we need to go back to this book and to follow the teachings that Master Farad Muhammad gave us through the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and follow it strictly. And we will reverse the aging process, and we will slow down our rush into the grave. Who is Monsanto? Monsanto was created in 1901. The company's first product was the artificial sweetener saccharin. And in the 1920s, Monsanto expanded into basic industrial chemicals. It is the leader in genetically modified seeds and crops. Monsanto is currently responsible for 90% of the genetically engineered seed on the United States market. Outside of genetically modified seeds, Monsanto is also the creator of the best-selling herbicide, Roundup. DuPont is another American chemical company and the world's third largest producer of chemicals, agrochemicals, polymers, safety materials, electronics, and genetically modified seeds. In 1999, DuPont became the largest seed company and producer of hybrid seeds used in production of genetically modified corn and soy. DuPont is among the top 4 biotech companies that produce 100% of the genetically modified seeds and 60% of world pesticides. What type of cooking oils are used in the inner cities?
So, brothers and sisters, that was the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan opening us up this evening. And, you know, I just can't emphasize enough just how serious some of those points that the minister made are. And you see, what you're looking at here is depopulation, a plan for depopulation, dealing with the foods that people consume, the foods that people eat. And companies like Monsanto, companies like DuPont, these are some of these big international conglomerates that are basically cornering the market on seeds and agriculture and the food stuff that the members of the human family needs to sustain life. And they're not sustaining life. What they're literally doing through the genetically modified seeds and produce is literally causing death. And so again, dear family, you know, we can be fanciful if we like in the way in which we think about God, in the way in which we think about the prophets, in the way in which we think about the messengers of God. But, you know, please understand that so much of what we've been given historically about God is really like fairy tales. It's nothing to do with reality. And so you got people, you know, who mock the whole concept of a God by talking about the invisible man in the sky because it's a joke. You see, but in reality, God is real. And the enemy of God is real, and the people of God are real, and the food that the people need to sustain our lives is real. And so at some point, dear family, we have to get real, because we have to understand that there is a plot to eliminate tens of millions, literally billions of human beings from this planet in order for a very small clique of people to maintain power and to maintain control over the members of the human family. And this is what Almighty God Allah, in the person of Master Farad Muhammad and his servants, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, are here to literally try to put a stop to this plan. And again, not via abracadabra, but by informing the members of the human family so that we can wake up to what's been done and that we can take steps, we can take measures, we can put in place an alternative way of living our lives in order that we can actually survive through this global death plot, because that's what it amounts to, dear family. So if you go to the book of Proverbs, chapter 14, verse 12, it says, "There is a way which seems right unto a man, but the ends thereof are the ways of death." You see, the way we are currently living, we call it a lifestyle, but in reality, it's a death style. That's the reality of the way in which most of us as human beings live on the planet today. It seems right to us because, again, many of us have been miseducated, so we don't know better. We don't believe that there is an alternative to the way in which this world has been designed. But this world wasn't designed by God, okay? And remember, again, family, when I say world, because sometimes you say world and people start imagining the globe, imagining the earth. No, did you know that you got the world of sport? You've got a world of gambling. You've got different worlds. You've got the white man's world. You've got the black man's world. You've got different worlds. And this world, the one that you and I have been subjected to, the one that has oppressed and denied our humanity, the one that enslaved us, well, this world, dear family, is the world that Almighty God Allah comes to end. And we must understand that, in this world, we think that the way in which we live is right, but the scripture says the ends thereof are the ways of death. And what we've got to do is we've got to change that death style into a genuine lifestyle. And this is where how to eat to live becomes critically important and becomes crucial to those of us who really understand that far, far, far removed from the kind of cartoon world that we've been raised in is a real world that we have to get a grip on in order to begin to really live in terms of the way in which we were designed to live in the first place. So the figure of Methuselah is a biblical patriarch and is well known in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and who is reputed to have had the longest lifespan of anyone found in the scriptures. He is recorded as living 969 years. Think about that, family. According to the book of Genesis, Methuselah was the son of Enoch, the father of Lamech, and the grandfather of Noah. These are all these biblical figures that are directly related to this individual, Methuselah, who lived literally nearly 1,000 years. Now, again, I think, I'm sure maybe historically I may have mentioned this before, but I know that sometimes when you talk about a man living to that age, and if you go to the book of Genesis and you read in the Bible and you read the other chapters following on from there, you will see that some of the ancient patriarchs and matriarchs, they lived 200 years, 300 years, 400 years, 500 years. And again, many of us, when we read these things, we think, well, this is some mythological thing. It's not really real. That it's maybe a metaphor for something, but it's not that people actually lived to those length of years. No, dear family, it's real. You know, this thing where now they I don't know, what do you call these people? These there's a term that I'm looking for in my head, but it's kind of gone out of my head momentarily. But it's like the not urban planners, but the people who manufacture the society. These people, they have literally given the human being, I think they say, 70. Okay, that's the lifespan that we're expected to live. Okay, so that's 70. A score is 20, so 3 of those is 60, and then 10. Basically, they predict that the average human being will have about 70 years on the planet before they're out of here. But what does the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teach us from the teachings that he received from Master Farad Muhammad? He teaches us that it takes a man 75 years just to know what life is about. So imagine we're dying at 65 and 70 and 75, and we're literally still babies. This is the reality of the modern world. We think that the modern world has superseded the ancient world in terms of, modernity and progress and technology. No, dear family, the modern world is actually a regressive place where instead of progressing and increasing in terms of our knowledge, wisdom and understanding, the people have literally been dumbed down. And we are now dying at babies. There's a scripture in the Bible. I should have really pulled this particular scripture up, because the scripture says, in that day, they will die at 100 years old as babies. See, because we're dying so early, dear family. And we really ought not to be dying the way in which we're dying. And of course, so much of the death is manufactured. And so, I just want us to think about this idea that many of us have when we get to 45 and 50, we start feeling old. And you see, that's because psychologically that's been programmed into us that, well, you get to that age, you're now old. Okay? No, dear family, we do not have to grow old and decrepit if we begin to understand and then ultimately master how to eat to live. This is what our subject matter is this evening. This is what we want you and us to really begin to appreciate and understand. Let food be thy medicine. Thy medicine shall be thy food. This saying has been credited to Hippocrates, the Greek physician, but the idea and practice of eating to live, dear family, is as old as time itself. They want to give it to a Greek physician or philosopher or whatever, but in truth, again, this is a Johnny come lately who basically was just repeating something that he heard from the ancients, okay? But food, family, is medicine. Or should I say, food should be medicine. But we've taken the food that we eat now, you know how many people don't really eat food for health and longevity, but we're eating for pleasure. It's a different take. You got to understand, and again, this is where I don't know, the binging on chocolates and binging on sweet things, and because it's all about pleasure and the taste, as opposed to really eating for utility purposes, eating for growth and development purposes, eating for healing purposes. You see? You know, and this is where the whole concept of food has gone sideways. It's not really how we should be. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that we shouldn't take pleasure in our food. Of course we should take pleasure. But that shouldn't be the primary motivation for eating, because this is then why ultimately we become obese. This is why we overindulge. Why? Because we like that sensation, that taste on our tongue, and we just can't get enough of it, and so we continuously eat. Dear family, this is such a important subject because, believe it or not, many of us are ill, and whether we want to admit it to ourselves or not, most of our illnesses stem from what we're putting into our mouths. Most of our illnesses stem, and again, remember, we're dealing with eating, we're dealing with consumption, we're dealing with ingesting something, and it's physical food, but it's also spiritual food. It's also ideas and thoughts that we take in. Anything that we ingest has the potential to add to our health and our longevity, or it can take away from. I think the way in which maybe next week or the week after, we'll be going deeper into how to eat to live and some of what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad outlined. But I know that one thing that he repeats over and over again is that food keeps us here and food takes us away. You understand what I'm saying? And think about it, dear family, because, it's like water, okay? We cannot survive for any real length of time, duration, without water. The human being is 75% water, and the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that every time we drink water, we are adding to ourselves. And of course, again, the water needs to be clean. It's sad that now you can't even go to your tap. In most areas where we live in the UK, and I'm sure, I know that there's a massive scandal in certain parts of Detroit where, there's the water is just so polluted and so leaded, so poisoned, that the people are literally having to, emergency ship in bottled water and all manner of different devices in order to get clean water, because you cannot drink from the water that's provided by the government because it's so contaminated. And so my point is that, dear family, we need the water. But if we are shipwrecked in the middle of the ocean, that water, that same water, even though, we know it's salted or whatever, but it doesn't matter. Even if it was a lake, a vast lake, like say Lake Michigan, which is not salted, okay? It doesn't matter. If you find yourself stranded in a vast oasis of water, that water can then take your life. I mean, you can drown in a bath, beloved. That's my point. My point is that water keeps you here and water can take you away. This is the duality of the creative process of God, okay? Life and death are companions, okay? And, food is the same way. Food has that same principle built into it, and we must take our food much more seriously, because the way we eat currently is causing us tremendous problems. And like I said, we think it's this thing over there and that thing over there, when we very rarely take a close-up view of the things that we put into our systems on a daily basis. I mentioned this in another forum recently, and I'm sure it wasn't on the Imagination show. If it was, forgive me, but I'm going to mention it again because, for instance, what I've noticed of late is all of a sudden, when you go into the shops and you look at, because I'm one of these people, when I go into supermarkets and places like this, I read ingredients, and if I didn't read the ingredients, my wife would have something to say about it anyway, because she's a stickler for knowing what the ingredients are in particular foodstuffs that we don't make ourselves. In our household, we try to make as much that we can make ourselves as possible, but there are still some things that you sometimes go to these places to get. But what I've noticed in so many things now, not necessarily things that we get anyway, but just looking at stuff in the shop, all of a sudden there's this ingredient that's almost in everything, and it's rapeseed oil. And I'm thinking, where did that come from all of a sudden? And then I was noticing it in all of the supermarket products. And then all of a sudden I saw an advert on the TV, rapeseed oil. I'm thinking, wow. See, family, these things are not by accident. These things are by design. It's like let me just digress slightly. It's like back in the day when it was taboo to have black and white couples on the television. You just never saw it. It just wasn't done, because in that day and time it was segregation. It was black people are inferior, white people are superior. There is no blending or mixing. If you did that, you better do that stuff in secret. It wasn't going to be on your television screen. It wasn't going to be on your movie screen. Sidney Poitier was, wow, the first kiss between a black man and a white woman on the screen or whatever. This was newsworthy because it was so rare and so unusual. Have you noticed how now almost every advert on the television is mixed couples? See, that's not accident. That's by design, because a new idea, a new thought has been now applied, whereby that's been promoted for a particular reason. Some of us are so naive, some of us are so silly that we think, oh, wow, oh, isn't that wonderful? Look at the progress. Oh, we're all together now. No, dear family, it don't mean that either. It doesn't mean that. What it means is that there is a different agenda that is being set. And it's not what you think it is. It's not about unity and everybody living in kumbaya together and singing nice, happy songs. Not that at all, dear family. It is the fact, and this is much deeper than what I'm about to say, but I'll just say it like this very briefly, because that's not really our subject. But it's about somebody trying to survive and maintain themselves here, when in reality their time is up. And it's about mixing everything up to such a degree that people can't distinguish who's who and what's what. Hence, now, the blending of genders. And I mean, you see, everything now is to be made confused. Okay? You no longer really a man or a woman. It's all by design, dear beloved family. And whether you appreciate it or not, what God has come to do is to define everything and to make everything clear, so that everybody can make their choice, everybody can decide once and for all where they stand, who they stand with, and what it is that they intend to do with their lives. And this includes the food that we consume, because depending on what we eat will determine our longevity on the planet, will determine our level of illness. Do you appreciate that you can't really afford to be getting ill today? You can't really be affording to go into those hospitals, dear family. A lot of our people have gone into the hospital recently and they haven't come out, and it's not that what they went in with was so detrimental or so heavy, but with this so-called pandemic, oh, it was such a convenient excuse to deny people proper treatment, to allow people to die, to not have relatives who could keep an eye on what was going on because of social distancing and isolation and all. Let me tell you something, man. There is a machine that is on overtime in terms of taking people out. You cannot afford to be going into these hospitals based on the fact that you are careless about what you consume today. We've got to be extremely vigilant, dear beloved family, about what we're consuming. We need to be asking questions, okay? Where did our current diet and way of eating come from? Inshallah, that means, God willing, around next week we'll begin to go into some of the historical origins of these things. We'll touch on some of it today, but the reality is that the question needs to be answered, because again, we'll be doing things today not necessarily knowing its origin and thinking that, well, because we're doing it, well, it must be the right thing. There is a way that seems right, but the ends thereof is the way of death. See? You got to know why you're doing stuff, man. Again, I may have mentioned this before, but you know, women now, they're wearing the little ankle chain or whatever. Originally, that was a sign of a prostitute. Okay? The brothers are running around with their trousers hanging around, their backside out, whatever. That's what was done in the prisons. Okay? You were deprived of your belt, and the more dominant, militant, vicious convicts would abuse anyone who didn't have the ability to properly defend themselves. I'm talking about male on male. And they would make sex partners of other men who were not able to hold their own in terms of being able to war or battle or deal with a potential rapist, aggressor, who, because of the lack of female company or the lack of women in those facilities, they would turn on men and rape and have sexual relations with men. And believe it or not, they would force those men to be submissive to the degree where they would have their pants hanging off. In America, I think they call it sagging, so that they were readily available whenever that dominant male, that I don't call them alpha males at all. This is because they're very weak and really corrupt individuals who have no self-control whatsoever, to the point where they're going to violate somebody else's humanity and they're going to become like a beast in order to satisfy some lust on another male. But this is where that comes from. And now you got these young brothers running around, some old men as well I've seen dressed like that. And I'm thinking, and it looks so ridiculous. It really looks stupid. You know, when you see a child who's not dressed properly, or they've got a nappy that's full of poo, waste matter, and it's hanging down in a very uncouth, ugly way. So this is how now the trousers are designed to look. Make you look like a baby who doesn't know how to dress properly, or make you look sloppy and nasty in that your clothes don't fit you properly. You've forgotten where your waist is, and so your trousers, I mean, come on, man, my God. But you see, we adopt the style, and we think we've arrived, man. We're like, yeah, this is me, and everybody's doing it, and then you think that you're creating something. You're not creating nothing. You're just following the crowd. You're just going along with what you see other people doing. And this is what passes as a way of life, when in reality, it's a Death Star. Make sense? Maybe it makes sense to some of us, dear family, but I'm telling you, man, you know, young people, we touched on this last week, targeting one another on the streets. And mostly the reason why they're getting targeted, again, one of the reasons, is because of the dress code. Because we're all trying to look a certain way. So then you don't have respect for that person who looks like that. And so you feel that you can violate that person. You can destroy that person because you think you know that person, because that's the level to which you've been reduced. But if there was a young man dressed sharp and in a beautiful suit and carrying himself in an upright manner and walking through the neighborhood, chances are he wouldn't be troubled, because he don't look like that group. He's not trying to fit in to that situation. This is real, dear family. Birds of a feather flock together, and that doesn't mean necessarily always in a positive manner. It also means in the negative. It's like back in the day, as a Jamaican, there was a famous song, reggae tune, that was called Police and Thieves. Police and thieves in the street. And the point was that you put police and thieves together. Because, believe it or not, when you're a thief, when you're a criminal, when you are somebody who is wrong, understand what I'm saying? Because, you know, some of us try to justify our criminality. But every criminal, every criminally minded person, everybody who is doing wrong, they know it intrinsically in themselves. They know what. And guess what? When a policeman comes on the scene, be it the policeman is in uniform or plain clothes, the thief recognizes him or her. They can recognize each other. And guess what? The police recognizes the thief, because there's a relationship there. Because they're birds of a feather. They go together. They flock together. See? This is reality. But when you're not a thief, when you're not in that criminal frame, you may not recognize that other one, and that other one may not recognize you. Okay? There's street smarts where you don't have to be a criminal to be able to recognize them sometimes. You have to then be politically aware, politically astute, socially aware, and socially astute. You can still recognize them on another level. But my point is that I'm trying to show you how these relationships are formed and how they are critical. We're asking questions. Why do we eat the things we do? We need to know this, family. We need to know why we eat the things that we eat, because they were not necessarily always our first choice. Not that we chose them, that's the point. Okay? And then why is it that so many of us don't like good food? Think about it. You got children, man, they're not going anywhere near anything green. And you got adults like that as well. Ain't eating nothing green. All we want is brown meat. Think about it, family, because this is serious business. Because this is talking about the health of the individual and the health of the community. Is our food life enhancing or death promoting? You know, this animal, this pig, this swine is so... Did you know that almost every single piece of this creature is used in one form or another for food and for all manner of other things that they use it for? They use the pig, in fact, for lots and lots of experimentation, including gunshot wounds or whatever, they shoot pigs to test to see, because they say, oh, the flesh of the swine is closely related to the human being. That's what they say. I don't think it's closely related to no black human being. That you can keep that relationship all you want. But they use the pancreas of the pig for medicine. They use all kinds of stuff from the pig, and whether you again appreciate it or not, originally that's what it was designed for. It was designed to be a living vacuum cleaner to clean up dead things from the earth, and also to be used for medicinal purposes. There were elements within it that could be used for medicine for, in particular, the Caucasian. But food? Oh, brothers and sisters, we're going to go deeper into this at a later stage in terms of the reality of the swine. But then just all I want you to do is just think about, that creature, and why is it that when you're acting the fool on the road in your car, you're called a road hog? Why is it that when you are, obnoxious to people, they may call you a swine or a pig? This is not, imagine, it's such a filthy name, but then that's what we're going to put into our bodies as food. My God. And some of us, we love it. We love it. Beloved family, a history of sugar. The food nobody needs but everyone craves. I just want us to think about it. And by the way, I'm not talking as a holier than thou. Me, I'm one of them sugar people as well. Okay? So let's just get it straight. But I don't eat any white sugar or any of those really refined manufactured stuff. I try to, if I'm going to use it, I use the brown cane, and I really try to get one that's unrefined and as clean as possible. But nonetheless, even that, too much of it, it's not good, dear family. Like so many things in this world, it began primarily with us and our exploitation and enslavement. See, this whole sugar plantation thing, that's where the whole industrialization of sugar began, beloved, with us as black people. That triangular trade that they established between Africa and the Caribbean and these European nations, it was sugar, molasses, and they would turn that into rum, and there would be this trade in between these global entities, and in the middle of all of that was the black man and the black woman who would work from can't see morning to can't see night, and would die in those fields full of cane, and we would be absolutely diseased and starved, half starved, and we would die age 17 and 18 and 20 and 25. Very few of us lived to older age, in truth, the way in which they worked us. And we died in the hundreds of millions. I want you to understand. See these little figures that they like to bandy about? According to some conservative estimates, okay, over 100 million Africans, over 100 million original people died just in the Middle Passage alone, in those ships coming across the Atlantic. This is the reality, dear family. You like to talk about 12 million and all this, and let me tell you something, man. We haven't got a clue how horrible this thing was that was done to us as a people. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan made a statement one day, and I said, wow, that goes close to kind of giving a description. The minister said if the truth was known about the suffering of black people in the Western Hemisphere, it would make a brass monkey shed tears. I want to say that again. If the truth was known about black people suffering in the Western Hemisphere, it would make a brass monkey shed tears. Okay, that's how serious what we have been through is. This is the reality of it, dear family. And you know, 6 million, they say 6 million Jews were killed in gas chambers during the Second World War. And that's horrendous. And we feel the pain of those who went through that and those whose families were destroyed in that Holocaust. But understand me and understand me well. You will never, ever make me or those of us who are in the nation of Islam and who are black people who know the reality of our suffering, pretend that somebody has suffered more in terms of those numbers. When you compare what we went through, they went through something for 4 years and we went through something for 400 years. Come on, man, there's no comparison. But you have those who will try to make that type of comparison and try to belittle the reality of our suffering as a people, which, by the way, didn't end in 1834 or 1838 or 1833. It continues to this day. Dear family, it is really, really important that we understand that how to eat to live is a life-saving process that we must employ if we're serious about survival, if we're serious about the next generation of young people who we will produce. See, because if we're not thinking about the generations to come, the unborn generations, then we're just some selfish people who don't even deserve to be here, if I'm completely honest with you, dear family. When you look in the mirror as a black man and as a black woman, don't you want to see yourself in continuation? Why is it that some of us just thinking about today and we don't give a damn about what's coming tomorrow? Why is it that we're happy to see our young people basically wasted and we're not prepared to actually make the effort to try to enlighten them and save them and give them a proper direction so that we are guaranteeing a future? But it's like we don't seem to understand that if the current condition remains the way it is, there is no future for us. This is real. It's one thing, dear family, to chew on a piece of sugarcane, but it's quite another thing when you process and refine that sugar out of its natural balanced state. That's when it becomes white granulated sugar, and it is an addictive poison. See, again, brothers and sisters, I don't want to really spend too much time on this, but just suffice to say this. Did you know that natural flour is always brown? See, we think about white flour. No, white flour is after the flour has been completely and utterly denatured. The natural elements of the flour, the wheat and the germ and everything, has been removed. That's where you get white flour from. And it has no nutritional value whatsoever. White sugar. See, this is the same as when you look at the topsoil of the earth, it's called humus. It's black, it's dark organic material. That's what grows everything. That's where the energy and the nutrients come from in the soil. But when you denature that, you get what's called sand, desert, white. There's nothing in it of nutrition, dear family. And we must appreciate these color codes that you find in nature. That's why when you break open that banana and you leave it for a little while, it turns brown, because it's melatonin or melanin, which gives it that brown texture. Break open an apple and leave it for a little while, turn brown. It's nature, man. It's everything that's nutritional and powerful has that melanin in it. It has that brown in it. And whenever you denature something completely, it becomes white or devoid of its real constituent parts, which is where the real, what you might call vitals are. This is where you get the vitamins are taken out and then put in tablet form. My God. Beloved brothers and sisters, I hope everybody is good. And I'm not sure how many of us are currently tuned in, but I would really encourage you, dear family, to, call a friend, a family member, somebody you love, and encourage them, man, to tune in on a Thursday evening at 6:30 to the Contamination show, because this isn't necessarily entertainment, but it's about education. And the word education comes from the Latin root educo, or to educe, which means to draw out from the person that which is already inside. And as I speak to you, you will know so much of what I'm saying is correct because it resonates with you. You feel it. It's resonating with something that's already in you. I'm not trying to tell you about 1066 and the Battle of Waterloo. That's some external stuff, man. I'm talking to you about your nature, about who you really are. And that's what real and true education is. Drawing out from the person that which was deposited by Almighty God in the beginning. That's why your intelligence, listen to the language, intel. Okay? It's something that's within you that tells you something. It's not external. It's never external. Intuition, an inner teacher, and an inner tutor within. And what we have to do is learn how to draw out. This is what the Contamination show is all about. It's about inspiring you to image. To see. Not necessarily, again, external, but to see within yourself, to image a nation. Because the nation, again, is not external. The nation is what is contained within the breast, within the heart, within the soul, within the mind of God, within the mind of the human being. And we can bring it into reality if we can once again employ our imagination. This is important, dear family. There's a man called Robert Lustig, and he's a man who believes that sugar is poison. And it's true. He's not, this is not some crazy man. He's what they describe him as a maverick scientist, and said that he's long argued that sugar is as harmful as cocaine or tobacco, and that the food industry has been adding too much of it to our meals for too long. This is real, beloved. They put sugar in everything, and there's an oversaturation. And one of the reasons why How to Eat to Live is so critically important is because of the science employed within that process of how you leave gaps between meals and how you allow toxins and those things that accumulate within the body that's not good for the body, how you have to allow those things to be eliminated from your system before you put other stuff into your system that contains poison. Unfortunately, dear family, we live in a world where everything is poisoned. I want you to hear me well. The air that we breathe is poisoned. The water that we drink is poison. And so much of the food having been sprayed with herbicides and pesticides and other contaminants and these things that they put into the soil now, manufactured by Monsanto and DuPont, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan pointed out to us, contaminate the food. The genetically modified seeds and what comes from that, the genetically modified produce, they have an effect on the body. They have an effect on the human being. They have an effect on our DNA. And we have to be very, very careful in understanding that all of this is detrimental in the long term, in the long run, to our health. It's unfortunate that sometimes, as some of us as black people, unless we drop dead immediately having put something into our mouth, we don't believe that it's actually doing us harm. That's how silly we are. See, but we don't understand that there is a form of suicide where you go to the top of a building and you jump off. That's quick. But there's another form of suicide which is slow. Mm-hmm. Okay? And it's what we do every single day. And when we know better, we should do better, dear family. So,
there was a question, how would you make devil?
Somebody's asking, how do you make devil? Ooh. You know, family, everything in life has what's called duality. You have good and bad, you have up and down, you have in and out, you have soft and hard, you know, you understand yin and yang. And there is positive and negative. And how devil was made was that over a protracted period of time, it was actually 600 years that the process lasted for, was that the good was killed and eliminated, and the negative or the bad was added onto itself. And continuously that process was continued for 600 years until you had a genuinely bad product. I mean, I'm trying to really simplify it because it's not my subject, but I hope you understand, because this is how you make devil, okay? You basically consistently eliminate the good and you add the bad to the bad. So the classic example of how it was done in this process of making the Caucasian from the original man was that if you look in your family, I'm talking to black people primarily now, if you look in your family, if you get your wife and your children and all of you in the house who are currently there, all of you put your hands together, and what you'll discover is that every single one of you is a different color. All of you, every black people all together, but we're all different shades. Now, what Yaqub did with his laborers was that he married the lighter onto the lighter. And every time a baby would be born, or two babies would be born, one would be lighter, one would be darker. The dark one would be killed, the light one would be kept. And then that light one would be married onto another light one, and so on and so forth, because the idea is to continuously get lighter and lighter while eliminating the darker and the darker. And this is the process that went on for 600 years, and ultimately you ended up with a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, almost transparent, translucent being where you can see the blue and the green veins under their skin. This is how the Caucasian was produced, and he was devil because all of that, the good, natural melanin and balance and equilibrium was removed from him, and now he had a complete devil nature. And understand that all murder, lying, deception all went into this process, and that went into his makeup, that went into his being. This is why, you know, sometimes in the nation we despair a little bit with our people, because when we see our people trying to change Caucasians and make them, you know, be like us, it's not in their nature to be like us. And some of them actually defy their tendency, their leaning, their nature, and they actually do good. Just like with many of us, we defy our nature, which is righteous and good, and we are totally evil in terms of what we do. And so there are some who fight hard against their inclination, their leaning, their tendency, and they actually try very hard to do good. I'm not going to deny that fact, but that's not their fundamental nature. Their fundamental nature is what went into that process of making devil over 600 years. I hope that goes some way to
We got another
answering,
question.
answering that question.
The
There's-
question is,
Go ahead, there's another question.
what do people eat if everything is contaminated? Where do
Yeah, it's
they
beautiful.
go now?
It's a beautiful question, and I'm going to go more into the question is what do people eat if everything is contaminated? And I kind of touched it slightly earlier on, but we're going to go deeper into it in next week and the week after, hopefully. But you see what it is, dear family? It's when and how you eat. That's the key. It's not that you can necessarily eliminate all of the poison that's in the world. You understand what I'm saying? It's like going out in the rain and hoping not to get wet. It's impossible, family. That's why you have a sou'wester, or you have an umbrella, or you have some waterproof clothing or whatever. And under those circumstances, you'll still get a little wet, but you won't get soaked. And that's the analogy that I want us to appreciate when it comes to how we eat to live. You can eat a certain amount of the contaminant, but you have to know when and how to eat it and under what circumstances in order to avoid it becoming poisonous to your system and actually becoming dangerous or deadly to your system. So again, I hope that goes a little way too, but we're going to go deeper into it, but not right at this moment in time. One article I read recently said, it appears that no other substance occupies so much of the world's land for so little benefit to humanity as sugar. According to the latest data, sugarcane is the world's third most valuable crop after cereal and rice, and occupies 26,942,686 hectares of land across the globe. Its main output, apart from commercial profits, is a global public health crisis which has been centuries in the making. This is how serious sugar is, dear family. Don't play with the sugar. And you know, the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan mentioned saccharin as that product that came out of Monsanto in the beginning, and it's really the reason why I'm talking about the sugar like this is because it's really important to understand how we are attracted to sweetness, how that sweet taste really drives our appetites, and how we have to learn to discipline. Did you know that most medicine is bitter? And that's the thing we hate. We run away from the bitter. But the bitters, even as a Jamaican, we have bitters. Okay? But the bitter, man, there's something in the bitter. You know, when I eat like oranges and satsumas and these types of citrus fruits, I eat the seeds. And when you bite into the seeds, you get a bitter taste. And that bitterness it's a chemical called laetrile. And it's like, it's actually arsenic. It's a form of arsenic, but with the fruit, it's not poisonous, but it's very good in terms of fighting disease within your body. This is why you look at horses and animals. You give a horse an apple. Does it take the seeds out and dash it? No, man. Does it take the core? No, it eats everything because the skin, but you know, bearing in mind, sprayed, everything. When you're holistic in the consumption of the fruit, it's got a lot of good in it for you, included even in the seeds. So the article continues, the obesity epidemic, along with related diseases, including cancer, dementia, heart disease, and diabetes, has spread across every nation where sugar-based carbohydrates have come to dominate the food economy. This is sugar, dear family. Now, I'm going to go into another area now because, again, you know, we're talking about the food, and I know some of us, we still going to be disbelieving, you see, because sugar is so nice. I mean, all these cakes and all these chocolates, and, you know, Valentine is coming around, man, and, you know, all because the lady loves milk tray. My God. See, beloved, look at how cigarette smoking used to be advertised as something that was healthy and highly intelligent people did. See, look at this image here. Smoke a fresh cigarette. Look, see, they got the man like he's some type of scientist, a brain box, but they're promoting Camel cigarettes. And this is how cigarettes used to be advertised back in the day. And they would literally go to the point where they will be telling you that this is actually good for you. See, understand the kind of world that we live in. Understand when you hear now, the you know, in the era of the pandemic, people telling you what's good for you, people telling you what works and what you should be doing health-wise. Be very careful, dear family. Be very, very careful. And for those of us who are still foolish enough to believe that because Dr. Fauci is saying it, then it must be true, think about all those who would have been enticed into lung cancer by their doctor. Look, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. I mean, this is an advert back in the day, family. This is how they were promoted. Look at the doctor with his cigarette. And even now you will find you go to see your health practitioner, your doctor, whatever, and the man's there. He's got to go outside in the hospital grounds to have a fag. Come on, man. And that's the man that's taking care of your health. You see the person, they got nicotine all up their finger. That's the person that you're relying on to make you well. Or you go and you see the doctor is obese, the doctor is as fat as they come, and that's the person you think is going to make you healthy. My God, dear family, we really need to think about what we do. Okay, women were especially targeted in these cigarette adverts. I'm spending time on this because, you see, again, remember, when we're talking about food consumption, we said it earlier on, see, you consume cigarettes. These are some of the consumables that we have been subjected to. And all of it is about what we eat, what we consume, and the effects that it has on us. Because again, you know, it's like I see people running, exercising, they're running, but they're running in the traffic. You know, they're running, there's cars all up and down the road, and they're running. And I'm thinking, well, what are you breathing in? You know, when you run, dear family, you really ought to be running in a park. You really ought to be running somewhere away from traffic. You need to be running where there are trees, where there's plenty of oxygen, where there's plenty of fresh air. If you're you can actually be doing something that's actually worse. It's more detrimental to your health to be running in an environment where you're just breathing in carbon monoxide from car fumes, from exhaust pipes. You got to think. We got to think, because we can be defeating the whole object of what it is that we're trying to achieve, man. I was watching a program one time. What was the name of that program that used to come on with those sisters? It wasn't just sisters. It was where they were eating, and they monitored them, and they were supposed to lose weight.
Oh, yeah.
What was that show called? And Secret Eaters? Was it Secret Eaters or something like that? And these two sisters, they were quite big sisters, and the cameras followed them around or whatever. And these sisters were convinced that they didn't eat much, and that they were really, you know, moderating their diets and whatever. But the camera, every time you saw them, they were eating. They were leaving the gym. They had all their leotards on, their lycra coming out of the gym, and they were eating profiteroles. Then one of the sisters, she had her daughter, a small child. They were eating dinner at home. She finished her food. The child was still eating. She went into her child's plate, was eating, whatever. And then when later on in the show, they were showing the women the videos of their consumption, they were like, you could see that these women were genuinely shocked, because they had convinced themselves that they were eating healthy. And most of us are like that. We will tell ourselves, even in the nation of Islam, talking to the Muslims now, some of us tell ourselves, yeah, I'm on one meal a day. Really? Really, family? Some of us are so far from one meal a day, it is ridiculous. Okay? Because even with the one meal a day, there is an optimum time when we're supposed to consume that one meal. And in reality, most of the time, we're not hitting that mark between 4 and 6 in the evening. We're just not hitting that mark, and we're eating for 6 hours, not between 2 hours. You see, and so, and you know, we're having these little snacks here and there, and we convince ourselves that we're on one meal a day. And so somebody, I know it may have been more than one person, but I know at least one person wrote to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad on one occasion and said, oh, I've been doing one meal a day and it doesn't work. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wrote back to the individual, that's because you're not doing it. But the messenger was clear. That's because you're not doing one meal a day. See, but like I said, family, we live in a kind of illusionary kind of situation where we deny reality even to ourselves. This was the targeting of the women back in the day. Listen to this advert. Cigarettes are like women. The best ones are thin and rich. And this cigarette was called Silver Thins Are Thin and Rich. I remember one time when I used to smoke cigarettes, there was a cigarette that they brought out called P.O.W.E.R. I don't know if they still have these. They were like brown and very slim, and they were supposed to be, you know, you felt kind of like sophisticated when you, I mean, man, we were so dumb. We were so dumb. I remember they bought one out. There was a cigarette that was a menthol cigarette. And it was when you sucked in the smoke into your lungs, it was a cool feeling because they made it menthol. But then what that did was it made you suck the stuff down because you felt it was cool. You felt it was doing you some good. My God, we're so dumb. It's like these people now who are vaping. I see them, the amount of smoke that's coming out of the car window or out of the, you know, out of their mouth or through their nose when they're walking down the road, and it literally looks like a dragon. You know, because by the way, that's the only dragon on the planet. There's no mythological creature called a dragon, but the real dragon is a human being who sucks fire into their lungs and breathes out smoke. Okay, that's the dragon. They drag on. They drag you down. That's why when you are close with somebody and you smoke together, give us a drag on that. That's what the dragon is. Okay, the dragon in your scripture is a human being. That's why we paint the dragon on the aircraft during the Second World War and in Vietnam and these places. We put teeth on the aircraft, and then that aircraft spat missiles and hot shells and bullets at the people on the ground, and it dropped bombs. That's the dragon. Okay, there's no mythological creature. The dragon is always the human being. Dear family, as we start to round up, look, man, listen to this. Look at this advert. I wish I could read this small print up here. I'm not going to do it, but it basically it says, I'm a lucky girl, because she was advertising Lucky Strike. And this cigarette, what they did was, it's toasted, so throat irritation, so no throat irritation and no cough, because they toasted the tobacco. My God. You know, family, and these people really play games with the ignorance of the masses of the people, and they just play around with these things, and we think that they are actually offering us something that's good for us. You know the reality of cigarettes today, right? But this is back in the day. Even the dentist got in on the act, and it didn't matter how brown or stained our teeth became. We believed in the dentist because he would clean them up for us. you know, we were going to the dentist with our teeth all mashed up, and the dentist is saying here, as your dentist, I would recommend Viceroys. I mean, come on, man. This is how it was. And you know, similar things are being done today, but just think about what the doctors are offering and what certain professionals are now offering you. to take into your system, and even suggesting that you shouldn't have a choice because it's good for you. I want you to think, dear family, because these are serious, serious times that we're living in. As black people, we did not escape the relentless and fake advertising campaigns either. What does this one say? All over America, more scientists and educators smoke Kent with the micronite filter. My God. See, this is where they're playing on our ego as a black man. The black man trying to make the black man look as white as possible, and he smokes Kent. And it says here, for good smoking taste, it makes good sense to smoke Kent. See, sense. Listen, more scientists and educators smoke Kent with the micronite filter. See, they're playing on the ego of the individual. You're intelligent, you're smart to be smoking your head off. But, you know, the reality, dear family, is that many hundreds of thousands of human beings, millions of human beings have gone to their graves as a result of the consumption of nicotine. And by the way, you only hear about nicotine, but in every cigarette there's over 4,000 different chemicals that have been put into the tobacco to do you harm. Think about it. I didn't say 4 or 400. I said 4,000 different chemicals. And the one that you hear about is nicotine, the addictive one, but there's so many others that are in there that are doing absolute damage. Not even the children could escape the wicked poison pushers, beloved. Look at that. This is real, you know. And back in the day, again, they had these age limits or whatever, so, but children smoked. Children smoked. When I was 12 years old, and I was in one of these approved schools. It was a school for bad boys they put me in. And everybody smoked. And I remember the first time I walked into there was an outside toilet where all these boys were in there smoking. 10 and 11 and 12-year-olds were in there smoking. And I remember looking at them and I was thinking, boy, I would never do that. Within a year, I was one of those children smoking my head off, dear family. Because remember, see, we're in an environment. Last week we're dealing with it. Born in sin, shaped in iniquity. When you're born into a sin-sick world, that's iniquitous. That's unequal and unfair. You're gonna be a miracle if you manage to come through a world like that and you don't pick up those behaviors and those habits, dear family. I mean, you think that's young. They never stop there. Look. You know, they use babies. What I got the baby saying, gee, mommy, you sure enjoy your Marlboro. He says, I should say not. My dad would never smoke anything but a Marlboro. And, you know, I mean, you know, dear family, we're dealing here with how to eat to live. We're dealing with consumption and what is being pushed and how things are normalized. This used to be normal. Okay, now everybody's enlightened. Oh, smoking will kill you. Smoking is bad. But people are still smoking, by the way. They put the pictures of lungs. They put the picture of dead people. They say, they put in bold letters, this will kill you. People still go and buy it, beloved. This is how dumb they've made the people. So that there's a scripture in the Bible that says, this day, I'm paraphrasing, this day I show you two signs, one of life and one of death. And the scripture says, choose life. But many of us choose death. Many of us are too damn lazy because, you know, choosing life means that you've got to do some work. Choosing life means that you've got to really be determined to live, you know. And so as we come towards the end, I'm asking the question, if they could get us to consume strong alcoholic drinks that causes drunkenness and kills brain cells, I want you to know every time you drink alcohol, you're killing brain cells. This is scientific fact. While ill affecting the egg of the female and the sperm of the male, it is hard to believe that bad, unhealthy food was also not on the menu. Think about it. Think about it, family. See, this is the type of things that's been promoted. This advert for Smirnoff vodka says, the woman says, I never even thought of burning my bra until I discovered Smirnoff. And then it says, anything is possible when you learn to handle Smirnoff. My God. My God. And you know, our young people coming up now, I'm telling you, man, they're taking alcohol like it's going out of fashion. Okay? And they haven't got a clue the damage that they're doing. Talking about young people who are not even ready yet to have children, but by the time they're ready to produce children, the eggs of the girl will have been damaged and the sperm of the boys will have been damaged. And then we have children, when we produce children, they are children who are ill. See, all this stuff, you know, you see these children being born with Down syndrome, you see the children being born and they're maladjusted in some way or form. You see the children being born and they got different medical ailments and problems and neurological problems or whatever, and we think, oh yeah, God messed up, God made it. No, God didn't mess up, God didn't make no mistake. He don't make mistakes, family. It's what we do, it's what we consume, it's what we're exposed to. That's what causes these problems that stem from the womb. Beloved family, How to Eat to Live, Book 1 and 2 fulfills the scripture found in the book of John chapter 10 verse 10, where it says, the thief cometh not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I mean, man, we could spend a long time on this, but the thief, see, the thief is everything that comes to take our health, to take our wealth, to take health and wealth, by the way, is the same thing. The thief is that which robs us of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. The thief cometh not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. And then Jesus says, and the man of God says, and God says, I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. That's what How to Eat to Live, Book 1 and 2 represents, dear beloved family. It represents that scripture that is predicted that the man would come and he would say, I come to give you life and life in more abundance. Dear family, the contents of How to Eat to Live is phenomenal. And I may go through this next week. I'm not going to break it down this week, but just suffice to say, look, these are just some of the chapters in the book. Right way to eat, vegetables, food God suggests, why they urge you to eat the swine, the pig, swine, fasting. I want to tell you something about fasting as well. 1 meal a day, beware of starchy foods and sweets, how Allah's way prolongs life, how to keep food from hurting us, the proper food and the proper time to eat it, the right food and the proper time to eat. It is becoming a must. Fruit is digested better when eaten raw. Overindulgence is the enemy. Our big problem is eating too much and too often. Why and how we fast in December. The food and its eater. Food can be life or death. How to live more than 100 years. Proper food for body and mind equals good health. The benefits of eating once a day. A list of foods we must not eat. You don't need numerous diets. Just eat once daily. Feeding babies. Meat. Part 1. Know the truth about the flesh of the swine. These are just some of the chapters, dear beloved family, found in How to Eat to Live. Comprehensive contents of How to Eat to Live continues. Live 1,000 years. Train yourself to eat as Allah has advised. The death way. Do not take birth control pills. Oh my God, what a subject, man. You know, food and health. Foods to avoid. Birth control pills. Did you know that birth control pills were actually a death plan and not birth control at all. Anyway, the fastest way, the safest way to eat, the poisonous animal eater, beautiful appearance and long life, divinely prohibited flesh, poisonous food and water. Bad food causes us to look old. Little pure food on market. God of right prescribes best foods. And, you know, on the front of each of the How to Eat to Live books, it says, from God in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. Dear family, we are at the end of this week's episode. And as I said, we're going to go deeper into some of the details of the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad as it relates to How to Eat to Live next week. Inshallah, God willing.
At Westside Young Leaders Academy, WILA, we are all about building the future leaders of tomorrow. WILA is a provider of special classes, programs, projects, and opportunities designed to bring the inherent genius out of our young African Caribbeans. The goals of WILA are to instill the tenets of success in our young leaders at an early age, creating an awareness and understanding of the opportunities that exist. The Academy provides consistent motivation to encourage participants to stay focused and to pursue those opportunities with passion. Get in touch now or visit WILA.com. WILA, building the future leaders. Stop, look, and listen.
You learn how to eat to live. You learn pork is not good for you. Peanuts is not good for you.
Sorry, dear family. All the time I've been talking to you, I've had my mic on mute, so I doubt very much if you heard what I was saying. But I was saying, don't forget, brothers and sisters, visit our YouTube channel, the Nation of Islam London Study Group, new NEW North East West. Like, share, subscribe, click the donation button to help us continue what we are doing. And I want to give you the greetings. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you once again for being a part of the Imagination show, and we hope that you will tune in for part 2 of How to Eat to Live next week, same time, same place. And brothers and sisters, to play us out, we're going to hear from the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan one more time, who will close us out with just a few words on the subject of how to eat to live. If I can find my cursor, that is. Okay, here we go.
You learn how to eat to live. You learn pork is not good for you. Peanuts is not good for you. Shrimp is not good for you. Scallops is not good for you. Lobster is not good for you. A wise God is telling you what's in the earth that's good for your body. But I'll eat the peanuts, and you eat the shrimp. I'm a little nervous. Let me pour. Oh, I feel so much better now. You're a damn fool. You could pour some alcohol in a glass and drink it and feel better? No! There's nothing that you can use artificially to really make you feel better, because when you come down from your high, you're still the same empty Negro, nigger, colored boy, white boy, devil that you were before you got high. You didn't do nothing. You compounded the problem.